Good morning and almost good afternoon for most of you folks, and welcome to Site's webinar, Friday webinar. My name is Sandra Masters, your host producer, and just wanted to let you know we will have a webinar on September 22nd. I am still working on a presenter. I had two that I've been trying to reach out to and haven't been able to confirm. So if you've got any ideas or if you can help, and maybe you'll be inspired to help after this session, to present a 1 hour session in September on that Friday. We do have speakers for November and December. Very excited about that. I'll mention a little bit more about that later. And then October 20th as well. So once a month, usually on a Friday, usually at 8 p.m. Pacific. Or excuse me, 8 a.m. I should say. Now, if you are on a PC, you probably see on the right-hand side of your screen. Let me go ahead and share my screen. That might be, yeah, there we go. Just make sure. On the right-hand side, you'll see a little orange arrow, and that opens and closes the control panel, and that's where you're going to find the download handout, and there's a little raise hand button on the handle, and then there's also what we're going to use today as the question box. So right now, type into the question box where you're calling in from, what's the weather like where you are, what kind of work do you do, and if you're brand new to site, I'd like to know that. So type into the question box real quickly, and let's see who we have here. And, you know, if you're having trouble with the audio, you could switch to the telephone, but a headset works best, especially if you're going to be unmuted. So welcome, Kimberly from New Jersey, sunny and warm. And Amber, all right. Minnesota, all right, thanks. New to site, I love that. Maggie from Michigan. Hi, Linda, good to see you. Overcast in Wisconsin. All right, Brittany from Rhode Island. Welcome, Brittany. And hi, Chris. He's in Scottsdale. I'm in Chandler, so we're pretty close. Lisa, maybe you'll be able to do an impromptu testimonial about your fine city that we're going to be visiting next year. We're so excited. And hello, La Kunta. I hope I'm saying your name right, and maybe you'll talk on the phone and correct me. But Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. That's great. Trainer there. Love it. Hi, Sandra from Philadelphia, and Michael will be speaking later, also from Philadelphia. Hi, Regina, Hudson, Ohio. And Julie's also going to be speaking. And hot Northern California. Yes, I grew up there. It can definitely get hot there. And Cindy, welcome, Lynchburg, Virginia. Meryl from Minnesota. Hi, Robin. Another from Spokane. 100 degrees. Holy moly. Hopefully it won't be hot like that next June when we're there. Hello, Kelly from Florida, and Judy from Florida, and Bruce. Hello. Bruce Fisher lives here in the Phoenix area as well. Jessica in Ohio. Hi, Emily from Atlanta. And Marcia, Nashville. Jennifer from Columbus. Vicki, Minnesota. Hi, Jamie, Pittsburgh. Cindy, Atlanta. And John from Brandon, Mississippi. Hi, Heather. So glad you can join us. Heather Robinson ran a phenomenal conference in San Antonio, and maybe you'll be willing to share a few comments or insights as well. So we're up to 41 attendees, and let's go ahead and get started. I know I've got 11 top training ideas today, and maybe even a few more based on the attendees that are here today. So this is top training ideas and application, the best of San Antonio 2017. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a moment. And the first person that volunteered to step up first was Michael Pearsall. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute his line. Welcome, Michael. Let's see here. Yes, there you go. How are you doing, Michael?
Hey, pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes. And thank you so much for being willing to step up to the plate first and share your key insider idea from the site conference.
Oh, you bet. Okay, the session that I wanted to talk about was with Professor Storm from Temple University. And she basically has one of the most difficult tasks of all, and that's teaching coverage. So how many people here have to teach coverage? Raise your hand.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, Kimberly, Larry, Meryl. Oh my gosh, Regina. There's lots of people raising their hand. Amber.
Oh,
Yes.
they would love this session then. So Professor Storm, she didn't have like a one, a real quick and easy thing to do, but basically she approaches it uh, from the standpoint of a very deliberate process. And she says that basically there's a five-step process that I always use for all of my, to get the learners into it and totally engaged. And interestingly, she teaches primarily millennials, so they tend to have a different learning style, just a little bit different. What I think about millennials is I think that they tend to be just like everybody else, and I think the way we kind of say millennials are different, they're not really different. They're just a little bit more. So in other words, like people, I think everybody likes to, collaborate when they learn, but millennials like to collaborate a little more, or, like everybody likes to learn new things or learn as they're doing it, but I think millennials like to do that even more. So if
Mm-hmm.
that's basically my way of looking at it, but Professor Storm has said there are definitely some similarities and some things that we can use to teach millennials, especially about coverage. The first rule of thumb that she always uses, and these are all our topics. So if you guys want to write this down, there are 5 R's in a row. So the first one is research, and so basically all of her teaching methodology is it's always based on science. So she always uses science-based research to teach people. The second two are really, really effective, particularly when it comes to holding people's attention, which, as you probably know as a trainer, it's really hard to keep people's attention, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the next two strategies she uses for that is, the first one is relevance. So relevance is like glue. It's going to hold everybody's attention and get everybody engaged, because as long as you can always bring it back to how they're going to use what she's teaching, then they're going to pay attention. So that's one technique that she always weaves into her training, is this idea of relevance. Bring it back home so they know how they're going to use it. The third thing that she always uses to train people is the rationale. And this is where you always try to explain why this is important. Again, that's going to pull them in and get them totally glued. So they're going to pay attention when they understand, the why behind it. So for example, for me, I live most of my life wondering, well, boy, insurance seems to always cover what you never need, and it seems like they don't cover what it is that you do need. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, until I started working for insurance, and when I learned about insurance and I learned about how it's actually a mechanism to control risk, and on people pooling their money together in only paying for certain of losses in a controlled way. Otherwise, it won't work. And so kind of like when I understood that that's how insurance works, insurance is a mechanism for society to control risk, then I understood, oh yeah, it makes complete. So now when I look at my homeowner's policy, or if I look at my car insurance policy, I understand why the policy will not cover certain things and it will cover other things. So that's what she means by the why. If we take the time and always explain why this works and why we do this, then it's like an additional hook on their attention as well as their long-term memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's very powerful. So strategy number 4 to make her training really work is she always deliberately tries to make a relaxed learning environment. Okay, so humor is okay. It's okay for people to kick back and talk about their personal relationship with whatever it is you're talking about. It's okay. So you always want people to you want your learners to be relaxed. It really helps them do their best thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And strategy number 5 is rapport. Rapport between the teacher and the learner. As long as there's a good, safe rapport, people are going to be okay asking questions and being okay with that. So you have 5 R's that make coverage training really effective and powerful. And I was blown away with it. There are also more. I don't know if I have enough time to go into too much more, but
just whatever you'd like to share. I mean, I'm just going back using the guidebook app and looking at the notes that I took using my guidebook app. And one of the things when you mentioned collaboration, the technique of think, pair, share, I really loved that idea for, getting people to collaborate more. Yeah, so share as much as you want, Michael.
Okay, so I do have quite a bit more. Okay, so as far as the policy, she says always hand out the policy, because people want to hold it, they want to touch it, they want to refer to it. It's the only real, because teaching coverage and teaching insurance can be very vague and very, well, it can really, it's kind of hard to pay attention to it for a long time, but it's their one way of having it be tangible. So you hand out the policy, they can mark it up, they can highlight things, they can make it their own, and that's a really strong way of enhancing their thinking and their learning.
Oh, that's great.
She has this systematic approach, too, that she refers to as DICE. How many people have heard of DICE before when it comes to teaching insurance policies?
Yeah, raise your hand if you've heard of DICE. A few people, yes. Cindy.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Julia.
Yeah, it means,
Kimberly.
it's the deck page, the insurance agreement, and I'm not sure what the C stands for.
Exclusions.
Yeah, and condition. So that's the DICE. So there are 2 E's. Let's see. To keep it going. Okay, so keep it going. This refers to like the spaced out learning. You got to space out the learning. You can't just have a one and done deal. So what she recommends is you always have, follow-up activities. So always plan your training to have huddles after training, or coffee breaks, or presentations a week or 2 later. Plan on giving a couple quizzes for the next few weeks. Dropping them what I call a low-stress quiz, where they're given a quiz, but it doesn't really amount to anything, or they don't have to, it's not consequential. It's just for their own learning. The actual recall is really strong for learning, and it also highlights their attention on what they didn't actually learn.
Chris is asking, would you be able to expand a little bit on the research, the R? Any ideas there?
Yeah, basically what I think Storm was referring to is basically stay knowledgeable about what is going on, what we've learned about how the brain learns. So whenever there's an article that comes out, you might get a lot of emails like I do about the latest white paper on research about the brain or whatever. Glance over it, check it out. You don't have to study this stuff, but if you're kind of reading this stuff on a regular basis, you're going to develop your own really strong base of knowledge as to what is really sound research.
So would that also include court cases that looked at contract language and they made decisions on it and that impact the entire industry, and maybe doing that kind of research as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you're good at, whatever research you love, because whenever you come into a training session and you said, I'd love to share with you this new research that we found based on, and you tell them a little bit about the study, that really gets people to pay attention as well. When they can see statistics and when they can see research studies, people pay attention to that.
And that was Storm there in the photo. So that's great. Michael, thank you so much. Hey, if anyone has any questions for Michael, go ahead and enter them into the question box. And I'm going to go ahead and share my second screen for a minute. And Mike, I'm going to keep you on unmuted. So you can mute yourself, but be sure to unmute yourself, because as I unmute people, I'm going to keep them on the line so we can make it more of a conversation, and then we can ask questions of each other. Does that work for you?
You bet.
All right. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my my first screen here. And I want to share our first insight from written. We had several people who could not attend today. They really wanted to be here, but they sent me an email, and I want to share Jill's with you. And Jill Joyner was one of the folks, along with Helen Gomez and several others, who organized the first time attendee session. And she said one of her responsibilities is to plan and coordinate the annual conference for her members, and they often receive feedback that members would like more networking opportunities. And so after attending the Saturday night event and coordinating the first time attendees breakfast this year's site conference, she gained a better understanding of the importance of helping attendees establish connections early so that they feel welcome and connected to the conference and the organization of site. In addition, she gained a better understanding after attending a breakout session on how to network, which is something that she thought she knew how to do, but was not doing it effectively. Because of what she learned in site, she's going to be adding a first-time attendees event and breakout session and networking at her members conference next year. So it's amazing the things out. You think you're going to learn specifically focused things about training, but I noticed some of the comments people learned more than just specifically to do with training. It just helped you in other areas of your work. So that was great. All right. Okay, Judy's asking, the professor's name was Storm Wilkins, Wilkins, and she is a site member. And if you look at the download handout in the control panel, her contact information. Actually, no, it's not there. I will get that added to that, and it'll be as a download with this recording. So, all right. So the R was research, right? How many R's? Oh, do the 5 R's again real quick, Michael.
Okay. Research, okay, relevance and rationale. And those are the two really good ones for attention, keeping their attention. And then number 4 is relaxed environment, relaxed learning environment. And the 5th one is rapport between the teacher and the learner. Awesome. And that's because it helps people feel safe, and so they can really do their best thinking.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so I shared a tip in writing, and Michael shared his tip. Now I'm going to look for our first volunteer to raise their hand. Use the raise hand button on your grab handle on your control panel, and I'll unmute your line. So I know we've got 5 other folks that said that they were ready to share their idea. So I'm looking for a raise hand. All right, Chris, thank you. Okay, I'm going to unmute Chris. All right, thank you, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Great,
doing absolutely wonderful.
Great.
Just got back from last night and had a good time talking to large groups of people about insurance.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, you're good at it, and we love you, all your contributions that you make to our industry. You know everyone, and for those new to site, if you want to know everyone, just know Chris, then you'll know everyone.
Well, that's because I'm not old, I'm chronologically gifted. But before I get started, I didn't attend Storm session. And that was really a good summary, the 5 R's. And that's why I'd asked the question about the research, because that's something, relevance and the rationale and the relax and the rapport. I think I used most of those reasonably well, but the research need to do a little more work on. When Sandy asked, I was about, what are some of the takeaways, and obviously the networking and the content of the keynote sessions and the breakout sessions and the learning labs. And I really think the big benefit after being a member for almost 30 years is the network and the relationships. But the one thing that kind of I have noticed at site over the years, and in San Antonio obviously as well, in the attending the annual conference, is the mix of people that we And as everybody knows, the baby boomers are retiring in mass from the industry and so forth. The technicians, the managers, the underwriters, the claims people, loss control folks, and so forth. So and that's going to continue to be, from a transition standpoint, how do we fill those places? And as training professionals, we have to look at, okay, how are we going to train their replacements? And some of us who have been around for a while, and, we're ultimately going to be leaving the industry at some point in time, either voluntarily or they're going to carry us out in the box one way or the other. And how do we recruit, how do we actively engage the next generation to give them the, for lack of a term, the benefit of our experience and get them involved in training and so forth. And I think historically, SITE has done a pretty good job. Membership is very transitory. People will come into a role, have training responsibilities for a period of time, then move on to something else. And I think we need to continue to recruit people. And I shared an example with Sandra earlier today about a young lady who works in our Plano, Texas office. And she came up to me after a session and said, I am really interested in learning more about training. So I hooked her up with SITE. She got all excited about it, and she went to Colorado Springs and did the Train the Trainer, and just recently received her ITP designation.
Oh, wow.
And I've had the opportunity to sit through some of her classes before, and she is absolutely dynamite. And going back to the 5 R's, the rapport, the rationale, the relevance, the relaxed, she just does a bang-up job. And I think going back to what Mike mentioned about the millennials and so forth, and I think they would like to learn from other millennials. So as a takeaway, we've done a pretty good job of bringing people into the business, into the training side. But let's keep working on it. Let's go out and find, like Tony Glotzbach said years ago at a SITE conference, take a millennial to lunch. And get them excited, because they'll surprise the heck out of you. They will get out there, and if it's something that they have an interest in, and you have to make it relevant to them too. So I think that was one thing I just wanted to share. It wasn't so much a takeaway from San Antonio as much as it is a takeaway from the overall organization.
Yeah. And I think our current president, Sandra Colley, would she be a millennial? I think she started when she was 2 in SITE.
The first time I met her, I thought to myself, did this girl have her driver's license, for gosh sakes? And that was an interesting story as well. I met her in Washington, D.C. conference, and at the time she was living in Wisconsin. And she came up, introduced herself, and said, I'm going to be moving to Arizona. And I understand you're in Arizona. You moved from Wisconsin many years ago. And I said, yeah, that's true. And she said, I'm interested in to learn more about it. So we got together when she moved to town. And, one thing led to another, and she got more involved on the training side. She'd already belonged to SITE. But, she would definitely fit into that category. And of all the business meetings where the president gives a talk and so forth, and I haven't been to all of them, but quite frankly, I thought hers was probably one of the best that I have. And she did all the R's. She got everybody involved, and she'd definitely be in that category.
Yeah, and if you lead the SITE organization, and our past president, Dev Davenport, led us through, a few difficult years of transition with our association management firm and those that came before Deb. And when you rise up to that level, the practical experience that you are getting leading others and mentoring, and it is just so invaluable. And I was so excited to see that Sandra, despite how busy her life is, and a young family, and huge responsibilities in her job, that she stepped up. And I think there's a lot of younger people that have extra flex muscle and time, if only they just need like a seed planted, and you could be that seed, or maybe you're that person that, if connect with one of us and we can mentor and counsel and find opportunities. I'm a big believer in, if you find things that you're interested in and then you pursue that interest, you're just going to be more excited about it, do a better job. So just, if you're able to express, what are your goals? What do you want to do? What do you need to learn? And then connect with the right people. So I don't know if anyone else.
And just one thing. It's like they've been preaching. Site's been preaching for years. Go ask somebody.
Yeah.
Don't send out an email, expect everybody to respond, but
exactly.
When somebody comes up and says, hey, or you find somebody in your organization that you think has a potential, because we kind of know when we're in classes or we run into them in the office of who has a potential to be able to provide training, do something, and go up and ask them, hey, would you like to do this? And this happened with one of our guys over in California who does cyber liability classes, and he is fantastic. So, but we just asked him. We said, hey, you want to do this? He said, yeah. So, and he attended Train the Trainer too. So we're 2 for 2.
I think it's asking and then making sure that you support them too, right? Follow up with them and make sure that they have the resources that they need so that they could be successful. So that's awesome. Heather agrees with you wholeheartedly, Chris. She's a millennial and she thinks we're on the right track with Site. So thank you for your comments, Heather. Your questions are welcome anytime. So you could raise your hand if you want to be unmuted or use the question box. While I went ahead and lowered everyone's hands, I'm looking for another volunteer. So I will read another tip that I received via email while someone steps up and raises their hand. So here's the second insight. This is a shorter one. Oh, from our president, Sandra Colley. She's sad that she can't be here with us. However, I can share that Jordana Robinson's presentation on becoming a provider for Adjuster CE assisted our organization in creating a more efficient process for submitting courses, as well as ensuring that we know the proper steps to take. I was able to take her presentation back immediately and use it to help us increase our CE offerings for our claims adjusters. And Jordana is going to be here December 8th presenting a webinar around this topic. So mark your calendar for December 8th if you want to check in on that session. Okay. All right, who do we have? Okay, so Julia, I'm going to call on Julia next. And Chris, if you don't mind staying unmuted, you can mute yourself in the control panel and then come off mute and continue the conversation. And Michael, if you have anything that you wanted to add to Chris's comments or any questions for him, you're welcome as well to just speak up. All right, Julia, welcome and thank you for being here. Tell me the pronunciation of your last name.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Bertolacchi. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
It's too easy, Bertolacchi. It's just the way that it looks.
Well, somewhat. Spelling it is another challenge, Sandra. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with all of you this morning. I am excited to share with you my Site Top 10 experience. I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'm not much of a morning person, so the coffee is starting to kick in, but hopefully I won't ramble too terribly much this morning. You know, the Top 10 experience I wanted to share with you, it's kind of an exploitation, actually. It exploits the natural learning process and how, in order to learn, we have to fail. And so, as a new Site attendee, it was my first conference, I learned a lot. I don't know if I failed too terribly much at the conference itself, but trying to apply everything, I've had to dust my knees off just a little bit and then get back up and try it again. So with that in mind, I want to share with you one of my takeaways, and it was based on a presentation performed by Dr. Greg Collins. He actually held a session entitled Critical Mistake Analysis. Sounds pretty heavy, doesn't it? But it was actually really, really interesting. He focused on specifically how to create effective hands-on learning experiences by identifying the right challenges. And yes, I wrote that down to make sure I would get it absolutely correct this morning. So the learning through mistakes is not necessarily a new concept. For me, it really helped me to stop, refocus on the impact it has kind of within our own training environment. What I found so interesting is that when Dr. Collins was talking about it, he really approached the subject with the idea of gaming and simulation. I really found it quite intriguing. So his focus was that as educators, we have a lot to learn from programmers. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about game programmers. So though I can't see all of your hands, I want you to raise your hand. If you or one of your kids, like mine, who are both in college, play some kind of a game online, either on the computer, maybe it's through your smartphone, or maybe even a console, maybe you still have an old Xbox around the house.
So raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand if you've got those gaming systems somewhere in the kids' bedrooms at the Oh yeah, we've got lots of people. We have Sandra and Robin, Lisa, Cindy, Brittany. I was just over at a friend's house yesterday and they were so excited because they had one of those antique game boxes where they could play the original Mario Brothers, and I thought that was interesting.
Oh my
going
not
retro.
An Atari.
Right, not that far back.
Was it an Atari?
No,
okay, now I'm really dating myself.
Yeah.
I always sound like Minnie Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I still remember when Asteroids came out. That's pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
So, that's bad. Well, and I am sure that some of you even play Candy Crush and you're just not willing to admit it, all right? So, I mean, we get addicted to these games, right? So what's involved in that process? Well, we try and we fail, and we try and we fail, and we keep this crazy cycle going on, until we win, right? We want that victory, or like Mario Brothers, you want to move on to that next big challenge within that game. Well, that's a learning curve, right? It's a learning process. And so the programmers have kind of figured it out more so than we have as trainers. It's required, right, for them to hook or challenge those learners, or think about it, they go out of business, right? So the programmers really have to be successful in this. So the desire to create that need to accomplish something or succeed, that drive, it's really the key in the learning environment too. So I walked away kind of with wondering, well, okay, so how do we transfer this into the training environment? And thankfully, Dr. Collins kind of gave us some of those solutions right away too. And one of those had to do with simulation, and I talked about how that creating the realistic scenarios in a kind of a safe learning environment will help the learner to go through that process of trying and failing until they accomplish what they've set out to accomplish, whatever their goal is. So if you think about a pilot, right, and they're trying to learn how to fly, they have to get the book smarts, and then most of them all go in like a simulation machine before they actually get behind the controls of a plane, right? So safe learning environment. Now, certainly, then they fly. But now, certainly for you and I, claims management may not quite be so thrilling to learn, or quite so risky.
Mm-hmm.
But we can apply some of those similar techniques. So my takeaway points to share and solidify with everyone, and I'll kind of give you a real life example personally too, how this process of learning learning through failure. One, remember that through the process of failure and advancement, we're going to improve more or less automatically over time. So it's not, remember I talked about how this was a natural process. It's not something that is a brand new processes for us to learn. It's just something that we're going to have to rely upon, that we've relied upon our entire life. Certainly through what Dr. Collins talked about, that whole gamification process, or even simulating environments, that provides the opportunity. Now, how do you do that in claims? Well, we can give scenarios, right? And then based on those scenarios, those what if scenarios, there's several other ways. I digress, I apologize, I'll get to that. So where do you start when you design something of that nature? He talks about start the process where the learner is expected to fail. So you have to look at what's that expectation. Where do you identify that? And then you design your training with that specific mistake in mind. And then that will help ensure the potential for that mistake to occur, because you have to have the mistake available to occur, right, in that learning process. Now, so which mistakes do we want to focus on? He talked about focus, let's see, mistakes. Oh, the mistakes that merit the attention and training are the mistakes that have the most impact in real life. All right, so it's key to focus on. You don't want to look at every potential mistake. You want to look at those that really have the greatest impact in real life. And of course, while you're doing this, your training is only going to be successful if you create that safe learning environment. And I think we all can agree on that. As trainers, that's what we do on a day-to-day basis when we're training, right? We want that safe learning environment. And of course, what does that do? That will help them propel up this learning curve. But then he stops. Oh, I thought this was really interesting. And I have to share with you, some of it I did not understand. I had to go back and reread some of the information he provided. And but I thought this was a very interesting takeaway also, was that he mentioned that it's not really a learning curve when you go through either gamification to learn or the simulation to learn. It's more like steps, right? And if you think about that, let's apply that to what you're playing on your phone or your computer at home, right? You have these very different levels of success. And so he brought that into the whole learning environment from an educational standpoint for us in claims, that we're going to have more like stepping stones or blocks that the learner will go up and achieve, versus really a curve. They're going to plateau, then they're going to have to try again and get to the next step. So I thought that was really interesting. Dr. Collins also said that the learner should continually keep figuring out how to stop making those mistakes. So you want it to be progressive. You need to ensure that it's not just one mistake, but that this is a progressive scenario, so that they'll fail several times, right? And at different areas to learn the whole idea of, choices and consequences. Now, of course, when they fail, our role as the trainer and trainers involved in the process, we really have to guide that learner at the end, right? Our instinct is to fix it, and we don't really want to fix it. We just want to guide that learner so that they can learn, right? Sandra, you want to provide the opportunity, and we want to provide coaching and feedback, but we don't want to just jump in and correct the mistake. You want to ask them. So I'm a huge proponent of when our trainees ask us questions in the training environment, they're always encouraged, but oftentimes I'll stop and ask them to answer their own question. And my emphasis is always, that old adage, I could give you a fish and you can eat for the night, or I could teach you to fish and you can eat for a lifetime. Right? So, and that's how I learned 25 years ago, right? I had the best supervisor ever. And she'd say, well, did you look here? And I'd have to go back and look at it. So I use that too. So that whole coaching and feedback component is so important. And then earlier, Mike, shout out to Mike, my counterpart on the East Coast. Nice presentation at site, by the way, Mike. I think Sandra's going to talk about that later. One of the key, you're welcome, Mike. We had so much fun. So, you know, one of the other issues that he touched upon was the emotional component of this too. And so I would be remiss if I didn't point out that, you know, Dr. Collins mentioned that too, that the bigger the attached emotion is with that mistake, the larger that impact is going to have on memory.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to share it's so funny because this is so natural when you think about, you're going to have like an aha moment right now. I want everybody to kind of think back in life to what I'm about to share with you on a personal basis. And you may have had some kind of a similar aha moment and not even realized that it was a component of critical mistake analysis. So when I met my husband 12 years ago, we'd only been dating for a month. And we went to a dinner party. And at the dinner party, as I'm meeting his family and friends for the first time, his best friend walked up to me and said, "So, have you learned how to spell his last name yet?" And I thought, oh no, you have got to be kidding me. So I could hardly even say it at that point. So Sandra, I'm not surprised you didn't know how, let alone spell it. So I you know, pulled up my shorts and gave it my best effort. And of course I got it wrong. So, you know, his best friend, being quite the prankster, a week later gave me a call and said, "So did you figure out how to spell his last name yet?" I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Completely caught off guard again. So I thought I had it right. I did not. Oh yeah, I cringed. So needless to say, the third time was the charm. And the third time I finally got it right, thankfully, when he gave me a hard time about it. So, you know, this whole process of learning through failure, it's on a day-to-day basis. It's, like I said, it's not a new theory. So, Dr. Collins, I better start wrapping this up. My gosh, I'm sorry to take so much time. Dr. Collins talked a lot about e-learning videos, which I thought was fascinating. We don't have those currently available in our training center, that whole scenario-driven e-learning component. Some of our self-paced modules have some of that in that specifically. But, you know, he did say that you can use these concepts across multiple modalities, like I talked about, situational examples that you can use for group discussions or individual learning opportunities. Some of them can be specific to, or as easy as learning definitions through Hangman. You know, I just used an old Hangman app, and our IAPs are utilizing that, right? That process of failing, unfortunately, you know, and hanging that per person, you know, if they don't get their definitions correct. And all the way through to more complex, where you give them a claim example, right? We teach workers' compensation to our new colleagues. So, you know, we do give them a mock claim and walk them through that scenario, right? That situational component. So currently, after this training session, this learning lab, I was gung-ho to identify all the opportunities, and I was really pleased to find that we already incorporated some of those, but I wanted to incorporate more. I walked away with the concept, less talk, do more for our learners. And so I'm doing kind of formulating right now a benefit notice bingo game, so that situational will be the questions, right? And depending upon the outcome, they're going to either be able to check off that bingo box, you know, it's bingo square, or not, right? So the answers are the consequence. Well, then ultimately, if they win the bingo, that's going to be their victory. And I'll have to, you know, I'll do some swag or some scratchers or something that, you know, candy, food's always a great motivator, right, in the training environment.
Right.
So stay tuned, you know, so stay tuned for the outcome on that. But so that was kind of my take on critical mistakes analysis. And then, of course, I do have to just take 30 more seconds. I don't see Helen on the call, Helen Gomez, who is our Western Regional Vice President. But I want to say to those of you who may not have attended the site conference, it was my first. I loved it. I volunteered from the beginning. I cannot wait to go to Washington next year. And when we had our breakout sessions and we went to our regional areas, Helen challenged us And I was so excited. I wanted to share with her. So make sure you tell her I said this, Sandra. She said, I challenge each of you to describe the conference in 5 words. So I'm going to share those with you, and then I promise I will stop talking. Apparently the coffee's kicked in. So here are my 5 words, and they're not in a sentence. Are you ready? Okay. Stimulating, educational, developmental, contagious, and opportunity. So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to me now or after the conference. Sandra, hopefully I don't have my information up there on a slide or anything, but you're more than welcome to share it. And if you have any other ideas to share with me, I am a sponge. Bring them on. Yay. So thank you again, Sandra. Have a great day, everyone.
Julia, thank you so much. I know one of the quotes that you made me think of through your sharing is by Max McCowan. He said, all failure is failure to adapt. All success is successful adaptation. So think about that for a little bit.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And, you know, can I share one more with you, too? So sure. Here, mine's not as fancy and it's not as long, but here's another one that I really think kind of, I don't know, it kind of just opens up that window, too. Mistakes are the portals of discovery. Mm-hmm. And that's by James Joyce. That's not by me. I can't take credit for that.
I like that one. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Julia and Chris and Michael, if you want to weigh in with anything. For Bruce Fisher, you did not put in your audio pin, so I just resent it to you. So you just have to type in #93# on your telephone keypad, and then I'll be able to unmute your line. #93#. And I know we have Kelly Hurley here too, so I'm hoping that since you did enter your pin, I'm going to point out to you next. So let me get to your name here, and I'm going to unmute your line. Kelly, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning to
How
you.
is everyone?
Good.
I've been sitting here and following along and go, well, they talked about my OneNote. They talked about my OneNote. And it was amazing how much that everybody has gleaned from this conference. It was, Site was my first time. I'd been with Site for a few years, but my first chance to actually come out to the conference and participate. And it was truly a great networking and learning experience to be able to meet so many other trainers, facilitators, and actually know that we all share some of the same struggles. Because sometimes I think we feel all alone in that. How do we get people to engage? How do we do X, Y, and Z? How long should it take, as I see Sandra on the screen here, to create a class? Am I taking too long? Am I taking too short of time? So it was nice to have a group of people and to be able to brainstorm and know that you truly are not alone, and you can reach out and have so many more contacts within different areas of the insurance business as well. But as I was listening about the gamification and the video games, that was one of my big takeaways. And if I could have raised my hand like 15 times, I would have. And my husband is actually a video game designer, and I sat through the class there and about the scenario-based e-learning and really seeing how it has to be almost like life and death in a way, but that you want the people to care. And when you care, you want to fix that mistake quicker, and you want to understand why. And I have to laugh because at the end of that class and that evening when I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, that's all about video games. That's why we do it. So it really hit home that somebody else figured it out a little bit before us. Mm-hmm. But I took away from the e-learning the ability to want to create that caring, and it's not just us as teachers caring about them, but making the students care about those scenarios and put the details into it, to take that time to build it as realistic as possible. And that gives them the groundwork to go, oh, what I'm learning is truly what I am going to be doing. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we have to tell them the why. Why are you doing this? Why is it important? Because sometimes we get wrapped up in, we know you need to know this, but we may forget to tell them why they also need to know it, why you need to use this system, or why you have to communicate a certain way or learn a coverage form a certain way so you can explain it. So there's a why behind it. But all the sessions were beneficial. I loved yours, Sandra, with all the different technology when we did the Camtasia, and I still am trying to figure out where I can use Kahoots in a session for a few different things there. But that video editing and creating those small nugget bites, that was another takeaway, was that we and Chris talked to the millennials, and we kind of chatted on that, that the millennials, it is very quick. They really are not wanting to sit in class for an hour. Sometimes I think a half hour might even be a stretch. So it's that takeaway is how can we get training in those nugget size? How can it be much more than here's your lead up, here's 10, 15-minute videos that you're going to watch over the course of a month or week, and then when you come to the class the following week, now we only need a half hour, or we take an hour, but it's different work, and retooling everything we used to do in a 2-hour class. So it's really thinking about that. The time is money, and also their time is important. Our time is important, and to get as much information as possible, we're going to have to delve into that video and use that technology that's up and coming much more than we have. I don't think we're ever going to go away as trainers, but we're going to have to learn to facilitate on many more platforms than what we do now.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for your sharing. And I want to invite Julia and Chris and Michael, if you have any questions for Kelly or comments that you'd like to make, you're welcome to do that. And then if you have questions from our audience, please do type them into the question box, or you could raise your hand, I'll unmute your line. So Meryl's asking, would you be able to email me the handout? It's currently blocked from the, oh yeah, it's going to be posted with the recording, but thanks for providing your email, and I will email that to you after the session. Okay. All right. Kelly, thank you so much. Are you going to plan on going to Spokane?
We're looking at budget, so yes, planning is in the way.
And for everyone on the call, the best way to sell the idea of going to the site conference is to present a session. Everyone knows something that is valuable to other trainers. They're going to be selecting breakout sessions in August, September, October timeframe. So now is the time to step up. You could send me an email and I'll forward you to the right person who's going to be working on the program. I know the VP of conference, Brad Gucher, and I know he's going to have a great team behind him working on getting breakout sessions, and step it up and just say, hey, I have to go to this conference. I'm presenting a 1-hour session on this, and this is how it's going to benefit me in my job, and I need to go to Spokane. So we invite you to do that.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sandy, this is Chris. Kind of as a follow-up to that, the RFP should be posted on the site website. Chris Boggs and I are working together on the program.
Awesome.
That just got posted earlier this week. So if anybody is interested or has a desire to make a presentation, that process is open right now. So you can go on the website. If you have any problems finding it, let me know. We'll make sure you get the information.
Yep. Hey, we are coming to our final close with Bruce Fisher. He did get his pin entered, so I'm going to unmute Bruce. And Bruce, thank you so much for bringing up the end of our session here. Lots of pressure to close us out nicely. I'll have a few comments at the end, but Bruce, so glad you're here to share your thought.
Oh, thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you very, very, very much. And just glad to hear all these comments and the excitement from all the other attendees. I think everyone got a great read on a particular presentation or a thought, or maybe even a conversation they had, which is part of the reason we go to this conference. I always joke with people that if I could only go to one conference a year, the site conference would be the one I go to. But I'm really kind of excited about it. I made some notes. I can't seem to locate them all of a but okay, they're on the ground, of course. You know, and there's about 4 or 5 people that responded, and I take a lot of pleasure when I go to a conference to just catch up with people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I personally take an active interest in the activities of individuals, where they are, what they're doing. You know, I don't mind hearing a few not so fun comments. You know, hey, I'm, you know, got 3 kids now, it's not the same, that kind of thing. You know, people are moving on and up in the world. So as an example, Chris Beheimer and Sandra Colley and myself, I used to call it, we were kind of like the 3 amigos. We go out every quarter here in Phoenix, and we got to be pretty close. Well, now Sandy is the president. Chris and I are still very close. I just saw him last Friday. And just watching what Chris is working on, seeing Sandy develop, just sharing in the life, you know, passions of my friends is there's no price that you could ever ask for the benefit of experiencing that. And that's what I get out of sight more than anything. It's the personal relationships and watching people grow, watching a few stumble, and then watching how they pick themselves up. It's real life, and that's what I like about the Sight Conference. These are real people, and it's just people just have the right attitude. So, yeah, we're running out of time. So that's the main thing I wanted to point out. I really did enjoy the presentations with improvisation. Improvisation is key to life, in my opinion. Thinking on your feet, and I know as a trainer, we all know how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the presentation doesn't come up, blah, blah, blah. You just got to think on your feet. Cool heads prevail. But I know Sandy. Sandy Masters is one of my good friends as well. And so I know a few people, and I find it ironic that everybody that responded to this note, Jill Joyner responded. She couldn't attend. I introduced her to Sight about 4 years ago.
Oh,
I remember
wow.
meeting her at another conference. And in the trials of, you know, your normal job, sharing Institute's information with Jill Joyner at TASB, Texas Association of School Boards, we became very close.
Mm-hmm.
Got her to go to a conference, and now she's writing notes and sharing. And a little shocked she didn't mention that I introduced her to the site, but you know, I'm going to talk to her about that. So it's all good stuff, guys. Keep plugging along.
Oh, this is great. Thank you so much, Bruce. I know it's been fun working with you over the years, and you always make Sight interesting and fun, and you're just know everyone. You're like Chris, and we need more people like you, because you know, relationships are hard. That's the hardest part of life, I think, and some people just are really good at nurturing and maintaining all of those relationships. And Sight's a small conference. You know, we get a couple of hundred people to attend conference, and so it's going to be a little bit different than, you know, your ATD or Training Magazine. They've got thousands, right? But you're just like a small fish in a big pond. And at Sight, you get to be a big fish in a smaller pond and shine more and really apply yourself and make those connections. And people really have to step up in a smaller all volunteer organization to make it work. And we certainly do appreciate in every big way and little way that people step up to make Sight great. So very good. So I welcome you to raise your hand if you are on the phone. I know Terry's here, and you were at the conference, and there's a couple other people. And Bruce, you're still unmuted, so if you want to make a comment. And
you know, I love what you just said, Sandy. We are different than ATD, and you will always find somebody. I want people, when they go to their next conference, to look at the excitement people get when they first see, for the first time in a year, essentially, a good friend. They run up to them, they hug them. I submit to you, you go to other conferences, you may see it, you more than likely won't.
right.
And it's something about the country within our group.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. Hey, we do have 1 minute left, so Terry, you're up. Thanks for being here. Oh, she might not have her headset turned on. All right.
No, this is Bruce again. I know Terry Katz very well. Are you talking about Terry Katz?
Yes.
Yeah, I know her really well. She won the Dickerson Award as the best facilitator for the Institute. I took the initiative to reach out to her. She lives in New Jersey. She's not in my territory. I'm a sales rep for the Institute. And we've become very close.
Can you hear me?
There you are. You got everything connected, Terry. Congratulations on the award.
Oh, thank you. I'm from Maryland, not New Jersey. But I love sites.
I knew that. Baltimore.
Yes, that's right, Baltimore. But I love site. I love going there. I love the networking and meeting the people. That is really the best thing. Just like I'm reiterating what everybody else has already said. So I always come back enthusiastic to share what I've learned with my organization, and that's really, you know, it's recharging. So that's what I find when I come back. I'm recharged.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. To mention the brain science session that Michael Pearsall presented, that was the one I was going to present on. And the nice thing about this is there's a 1-hour webinar at the site website with a downloadable handout that gives the details, and it's totally transformed the way that I counsel and coach students who are preparing for national exams and really teaching them the techniques of remembering, because our prehistoric brain is not designed to remember, and we have to do things as trainers and educators to teach them the techniques of how they could be better rememberers. And so I encourage, if you're a site member, go to the site website, log in under the webinar archives. And if you're not a site member, I encourage you to join. It's very affordable. There's an application right there at insurancetrainers.org. We'd love for you to join and get you connected. So thanks again, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.